Hello, you made it all the way to paper number 2, which, as I said in your note, is worth 25% of the grade for this semester. So this is one you really want to take your time and make sure you're getting all of the parts of it. And the nice thing about it is a lot of the parts that you do now will add up to points for the final paper. So like the last paper, you're doing the work in advance. So the first thing I have read for you is to read the rubric. So I'm going to go over the rubric with you a little bit now to clarify some things. And it's really important that you understand how it's broken apart. So there's 2 different parts for it. You have your paper, which is a summation paper, and you have a video or a brochure, whichever one you want to make. And you have your portfolio. So the portfolio is actually all the things that go into the paper, and you will be turning them in with your final paper. The first thing is the vocabulary and glossary of terms. So it explains that, and we're going to be talking about that later. It'll be due in a different week. But everything for this assignment will be about writing in the career. So if you're doing radiology, you don't want radiologist terms. You want terms about writing, what types of writing you'll be doing in that particular career. And I'm happy to meet with you in a Zoom meeting and kind of talk through your particular job, but I want you to know 2 things, like even email, that's writing in your career. So you have to look at all of the various things, and you'll see during our slides, and I'll talk about that in a minute this week, is that there's all kinds of different writing for each career type. So that's the first thing. You'll have 5 fully defined terms. They will have to be cited where you got them from, and you'll have to have definitions of what those terms are in writing. The second one, which is also worth 5 points, and these points are what I call double points, meaning you're going to turn them in once during our Moodle time, so I can give you a little feedback, and then you're going to turn them in with your final paper. And you'll have a chance, like say you got it completely wrong, you just completely misunderstood what was supposed to go there, or you missed it, you still get a chance to do it for your paper. So the second part is research links, which is what we're doing this week. This week you will be posting scholarly sources. So you can use the Kresge Library links, or you can use Google Scholar. So if you use Google Scholar, you don't have to guess if it's scholarly or not, and it's scholar.google.com. If you use the Kresge Library, just make sure you're checking off that it's a scholarly work that you're looking at. And what you're trying to do is talk about writing in the career. So some careers have difficulty with writing in the career, some careers have different styles of writing that they do. Sometimes there's arguments, like for nurses, there's arguments between clipboard or digital reporting. So you need to have 2 research links. You'll have 3 altogether that will go in your works cited page. I expect when you turn it in this week, you're going to have it cited in MLA format. And then you will have it also written out, basically what is in the link, what will help you about writing in the career, and basically what it's about. This saves you from pulling up a link that you're not going to be able to use. So a lot of times people struggle with that. They'll say like, oh, okay, I'm in a hurry and I need to find quick links, and they'll just grab anything and post it. And then when it comes time for the paper, they're like, I can't use this. This doesn't have anything useful in it. So you're looking for either issues with writing in that particular career, if there's issues with mistakes that people make, or if there's issues with the way people are trained, or the style or the type of writing, or even one that kind of explains this is the type of writing you're going to do in this career. So those are due this week too, and they have to be scholarly. They can't be popular. Then your next thing you'll do, and we'll do that again in another week, so don't worry about it right now, we'll look up 5 social networks that are for your particular career. Those do not have to be about writing. Those can be just 5 social networks. Sometimes there's conferences, sometimes there are just social networks to talk about issues. Sometimes there's professional networks that can help with it. So we'll be looking for those 5 sources. These things, again, will be used double. You'll write about them in your paper, and you're also going to put them in your brochure. Then you'll have your interview. So the interview I mentioned, but you will have to conduct an interview with a person that is in that particular field. You'll have a minimum of 10 questions for that, and we'll be writing them next week. So next week you'll be writing those and posting them, but you should in your mind start figuring out who you could interview for this. Because as soon as we write those interview questions and I kind of give you some quick feedback on them, I would conduct the interview as soon as possible, because the human connection is the hardest part of this, trying to get someone who you can interview. Yes, you can interview a family member if that's the career you're going into. You can interview a professor in your particular career or degree if that helps. You can call or Google places and ask, like, I'm doing a paper for this particular class, and is there a way for me to interview someone there really quickly? Or you can send it via email. If it helps you to do it on Zoom and record it, you can do that too. It's really just up to you what works best for your particular career that you're looking into, but you do want to get some idea. There's also the option, sometimes there are interviews online about writing in that particular career that you might be able to use as a source. You'd have to cite it, but you will need to do an interview. At the time, you're going to want to get the interviewee's image and everything. So we are going to talk about that a lot next week. Next week is really going to be talking about the interview situation, and that is worth a lot of points of the paper, and this is of the whole paper. So the interview itself is worth 10, transcribed is worth 10 points. The last thing is the 20 points for the paper is a separate summation paper. So you'll get 5 points for each of the first 3 things. You'll get 15 points for the interview, and you'll get 20 for this paper. And the paper is really broken down below that. So you'll see I have it kind of highlighted in red. It says 20-point summation paper, and it explains MLA paper. It's informative, as if you're writing it for someone that is considering going into this career and wants to know what kind of writing they'll have to do. And then the explanation for that paper is directly below that in bold. It says summation paper rubric. And then it tells you what I want basically on each paragraph again. It breaks it down for you like my last one did, where I'm like, I need you to have these things in here. So the research you're doing this week will be 1 paragraph of your paper. You'll be talking about it and how they provided valuable information. You will need to use these sources. You'll need to have 2 of your questions for your interview will have to come from the research you did this week. So you would say like, oh, Bongley and Stronk state that writing in engineering often has multiple issues when it comes to the postmortem report. What is your insight on that? What do you think about that? And we'll talk a lot about the interview next week, but we'll have to have 1 question from at least each source in your interview questions. And then your interview, of course, your transcription of the interview, but like a discussion of it. So I'm going to include multiple different papers from students as we go along so you can get an idea how it works. And then you'll have a reflection. And yes, this is part of your paper. Those 5 questions you won't number. You'll just kind of talk about what did you do? How did you write it? How did you research? What were your strengths? What did you struggle with? What did you learn? All those things. And then your last part of this paper is a brochure. So some people do a brochure, some people do a video. I would say 90% of people do a brochure because it's easier. What you're doing is creating a brochure for someone, either a student that's thinking of going into the career you're going into, or a person who's transferring careers and they're thinking, well, maybe I'll go into this. I don't know. I want to know what kind of writing I have to do. And your brochure will explain that. And then I've got listed on the brochure information exactly what you need to put in there. And we'll talk more about the brochure later, because you really just need to, like we did with the worksheets, focus on each of these points as they're coming up. So don't get too caught up in the big picture other than getting an interview person together. But that's what the paper is about. And we'll continue talking about it. But this week, all you have to do for the actual paper this week is post your sources, your 2 scholarly sources. And again, they have to be about writing in the field. They can't just be about the field. So with the brochure, you'll see there's a portion where you're going to, in your paper and in the brochure, you're going to have to talk about how you designed your brochure. And the CRAP principles that I have included in this week's readings, it's contrast, repetition, alignment, and proximity, are going to be discussed a little bit later as well. But really, it's talking about how did you use contrast? Did you use different types of fonts? Did you use different sizes of fonts to show, like, this is a heading and this is a a lower idea piece of information? Or why did you decide to put the interviews picture and the quote from them right in the middle of the brochure when you open it? You'll be discussing, what was repetition? I used as repetition the same format for defining my vocab terms. And that's because then everyone would know visually those are the same thing. I'll talk a little bit more about the CRAP principles as we get further in the class, but I wanted you to know that. The other assignment that's due this week, so the first one is the 2 scholarly articles. The second one is to go into the types of writing assignment slides. So I created a big Google slide document, and I have listed on it 22 different types of writing in different careers. You may not get the one that is in your career, depending on when you clock into this. But you'll choose one of those. You're going to look up information about it. You're going to write what it is. So I have, if I have the curriculum vitae, look that up. What is it? What kind of writing is it used for? What careers use this writing? I have all the directions spelled out on the actual slides. If you're having any trouble accessing the slides, just send me a request for access and I will immediately send it back to you as soon as I open it. So don't panic yet. Don't panic at all. Really just focus on those 2 things that are due this week. Read through all the information, and I will keep talking to you more and more about this as we go along. Start thinking about your interviewee, and good luck.